What if I told you that NASA satellites have already recorded something in space that should never have been seen by humanity? What if these images, captured by highly advanced equipment orbiting silently above our heads, showed signs of something that defies everything science has ever explained? NASA, known for exploring the farthest reaches of the universe and revealing revolutionary scientific discoveries to the world, may also be hiding disturbing records captured by its own satellites. And when we talk about hiding, we're not just talking about technical data. We're talking about mysterious images, unexplained anomalies, and space phenomena that appear for seconds in broadcasts, but disappear as quickly as they appear. Coincidence, or something carefully controlled? Internal leaks, testimony from former employees, and encrypted files suggest that some of these satellites, such as SOHO, Hubble, and even newer space probes, would have recorded unidentified structures, signs of artificial activity, and even possible unknown life forms in deep space. But why does this information never reach the public? And why do some recordings abruptly cut out or corrupt seconds before showing something truly revealing? There are those who say that these are all just technical glitches. But why do so many of these errors happen precisely when there is something unusual in the satellite's field of view? While billions are invested in space observation technology, are we really being informed about everything that is seen out there? Or are we facing a global strategy of information control, where only what is appropriate is shown, and what scares, questions, or reveals too much is it muted? What if the truth has already been recorded, pixel by pixel, by mechanical eyes floating in the vacuum of space, but never revealed to the world? Today, we're going to look at images, data, and reports that could change everything you think you know about NASA and its satellites. But first, get ready to see with your own eyes what might never be shown. Get ready to see with your own eyes what perhaps was never meant to be shown. But before we reveal this shocking evidence, pay attention. What you are about to discover may never be available again. Videos like this have already been taken down. Files have disappeared from the internet without explanation, and testimonies have been completely silenced. Why? Because there are those who don't want you to see that. That's why it's essential that you stay informed. With each passing day, new images are captured, new files are hidden, and new information disappears without leaving a trace. NASA continues to launch satellites, exploring the cosmos with cutting-edge technology. But are we really seeing everything they are seeing? There is a very fine line between what is disclosed to the public and what is kept silent behind the scenes. And whoever controls that line controls what you believe about the universe. Therefore, if you value the truth, if you want to continue receiving content that challenges common sense and reveals what few have the courage to expose, leave your like here on the video. This helps this content not to be hidden by platforms. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what comes next will mess with your worldview. We have a lot more material coming. Never before seen images, in-depth analysis, and stories that can connect the dots that NASA would never connect publicly, now that you're part of this journey. Are you ready to see what NASA's satellites actually captured in space? The next image will leave you with a question in your head. What exactly is out there? And why don't they tell us everything? Now that you're part of this journey, are you ready to see what NASA satellites actually captured in space? The next image will leave you with a question in your head. What exactly is out there? And why don't they tell us everything? NASA, one of the most powerful and influential space agencies in the world, today has more than 30 operational satellites orbiting planet Earth and other regions of our solar system. Satellites like Hubble, the SOHO, the Landsat, among many others, capture thousands of images of the universe every day. These are real-time records that should show the reality of the cosmos, without filters, without edits, without censorship. But is that really what happens? What few people know and even fewer question is the level of control and selection about the information that reaches us. Not all images captured by satellites are released to the public. Many are not even mentioned in official NASA channels. There are internal databases, encrypted servers, and, according to reports from former employees, even security protocols that define what can and cannot be disclosed to the population. And when strange images appear, when does a light move against all the laws of physics? When a solid geometric object is captured thousands of kilometers from Earth in the middle of nowhere. The answer, almost always, is the same. System failure. Solar reflection, lens error. But are these errors really errors? Or would they be signs of something NASA would rather keep secret? In recent years, increasingly anomalies recorded by NASA satellites began to circulate on the internet. Some show what appears to be an artificial structure floating in space. Others reveal points of light that move in intelligent patterns, something you would never expect from a meteor or space debris. There are also records of mysterious energy leaks, large enough to be captured thousands of kilometers away, but which mysteriously disappear from the agency's public databases. An emblematic case occurred in 2020, when images captured by the satellite GOES -17 showed a beam of light leaving the Earth and heading toward space, as if something was being transmitted or even abducted. A few hours later, the files were deleted. The justification: a technical failure in thermal sensors. The same response pattern used for decades now. Stop for a moment and think with me. If it were just a technical problem, why the data was completely removed rather than corrected and republished? Why doesn't NASA just show the raw, uncut version of these transmissions? Not to mention the images captured by scientific satellites from other agencies, such as ESA European Space Agency and JXA Japanese Space Agency, which, curiously, also lose files shortly after detecting similar anomalies. We are talking about a global space monitoring network, capable of observing space in very high resolution, day and night, but which always seems to fail in the most important, most mysterious, most revealing moments. Another striking example came from Stereo B satellite. In 2016, the device, which was part of a project to monitor the sun in 360 degrees, would have captured a gigantic shadow moving around the star, blocking the light for a few minutes. NASA claimed it was a data compression error. But independent experts who analyzed the original file say that the data was intact, and that the image clearly showed a solid structure with symmetrical edges and independent movement. Could this be a lens artifact, or something that no one wants to explain? Now look, with all this history of inexplicable records, do you still believe that everything NASA sees, it shows? Do you really think satellites are just there to observe the weather and send beautiful images from space? Or is there a larger system of control? Something that goes far beyond public science and that works to keep most people in the dark. For decades, there has been talk about secret programs, hidden quests, and even unofficial collaborations between space agencies and unknown entities. Leaked documents cite sensitive data containment protocol used whenever a satellite records something considered potentially disruptive to the security of humanity. But who decides what is disruptive or not? Who defines what you can and cannot know? The point here is simple. Information is being filtered, and we are not the ones in control. This makes it absolutely essential that there are channels like this one, committed to bringing these discussions to light based on evidence, investigations, and critical analysis. And if you've made it this far in the video, it's because you also feel that something doesn't add up, which there are too many gaps, too many coincidences, and that perhaps the truth about what's out there is already being observed by NASA's robotic eyes, just hidden from us. In fact, tell me something. Have you ever seen a satellite image that made you suspicious? Have you ever noticed a detail that seemed too wrong to be normal? Have you ever wondered why live images are interrupted at precisely the most interesting moments? Comment below what you think of all this. It could just be the word manipulation, if that's what you believe, or protocol, if you also feel that there is something being controlled behind the scenes. The important thing is your participation. Your opinion can influence the algorithm and bring this truth to more people. And stay with me, because now, let's get into the most controversial visual evidence ever captured by NASA satellites. Records that not even experts have been able to explain to this day. In 2021, an orbital observation satellite captured an anomaly that to this day has not been officially explained. The record shows an intense light, bluish in color, crossing the Earth's orbit at an absurd speed with a displacement pattern that does not fit into any meteor trajectory, no known satellite orbit, and definitely does not correspond to any type of space debris already catalogued. The event lasted just a few seconds, enough time to activate the sensors of 3 different pieces of equipment, 2 of them under the control of NASA itself. But the strangest thing was not what appeared. That's what happened soon after. The images, initially public, disappeared. From the agency's database, the official explanation was simple: anomaly in the optical sensors. Interestingly, the same justification was used in other similar events, recorded by different satellites at different times and in different regions of space. NASA's pattern of behavior begins to repeat itself. A phenomenon appears, is captured. Data enters the system, ... and then disappears. When they do not disappear, they are filed away as unidentified phenomena and simply forgotten. Or at least, that's what they want us to believe. This 2021 case was not the first, not the scariest. Internal reports, leaked by anonymous sources linked to confidential agency projects, describe the existence of even more disturbing records. One of them, from 2014, mentions a giant shadow. Yes, it's a perfectly geometric shadow, slowly moving around the moon's orbit. The object would have been captured by a scientific probe, but the video was never released to the public. Sources claim that, after the incident, the satellite was remotely turned off and restarted hours later with its memory wiped. Coincidence or containment of sensitive data? Another episode, documented by civilian astronomers, occurred in 2018, when a group of meteorological satellites captured a white activity near Earth's atmosphere, as if a sequence of beams were being emitted from a fixed point in low orbit. NASA again claimed they were reflected solar storms, but independent experts who analyzed the data refuted this version. The light scattering angles did not match any solar explanation, and, again, the files disappeared abruptly now. Think with me, how many satellites does NASA have in operation today? Orbiting not only the Earth, but also monitoring Mars, Jupiter, the Moon, and even more distant regions of deep space. There are dozens. Some operating in partnership with other agencies, such as ESA and Roscosmos, others belonging to programs whose existence has not even been officially confirmed. And within this vast mesh of observation technology, gaps appear. Files that don't close, numbers that don't add up, live streams that crash at the exact moment something unusual appears on the screen. This happens too often to be considered an accident. Have you ever noticed how the official narrative always seems ready? Always with immediate responses: atmospheric refraction, lens error, duplicate image, satellite failure. Words carefully chosen to sound technical, unreachable to the common public. But when experts analyze the same data with their own software and without institutional filtering, what appears defies logic, science, and our understanding of the universe. There are also nighttime images that show lights moving in unnatural patterns, satellites that change their trajectory without any external command, electromagnetic signals captured by sensors, similar to coded pulses, but which do not come from Earth, frequencies that are not part of any known human technology. And yet, all of these records receive the same label of no scientific importance. The question is, who decides what is important or not? Who controls the border between what is science and what is institutional silence? It is at this point that theories stop being just speculation and begin to take shape. When you look at the reports, the leaks, and the fragments of data that escape the system, you realize that there is a narrative being carefully shaped. A narrative where we can only see what doesn't scare us. A narrative where NASA acts as a filter, as a wall between what satellites capture and what the world can know. And it's not just NASA. Silent collaboration between international agencies, universities, private companies, and even digital platforms helps reinforce this information blockade. There are satellites for exclusively military use with very high-resolution sensors capable of identifying a moving car on the Earth's surface. Do you really think that these same technologies cannot capture an anomalous object in space? Do you really think the heavens are silent? Behind the scenes, there are records of internal meetings between government bodies discussing the feasibility of hiding certain phenomena from the population. Some documents openly talk about the risk of collective panic if certain images were released without filtering. Others mention the term slow-down protocol, a standard procedure for dealing with the accidental leakage of sensitive content through unofficial channels. One of these documents, dated 2017, says the following: in case of unauthorized PHAs, in case of unauthorized disclosure, the recommendation is to neutralize the source and apply interference to digital traffic until the file disappears from public circulation. What does this tell you? That we are facing a highly trained machine to manage not only space exploration, but also the public perception of it. And in this equation, truth is the least important variable. As long as the narrative stays under control, as long as the mystery doesn't turn into chaos. They will continue to dictate what you can see. Or better yet, what do you know you can see, in fact? If you've ever felt cheated watching a live space broadcast that was simply cut off at the most interesting moment, or if you've ever seen a Hubble image that seemed too edited to be real, comment below what you thought at the time. You can comment just the word covert if that sums up how you felt, or the word manipulated if you believe that there's an agenda to hide certain facts from the population, and tell me, do you believe that these phenomena really are of no scientific importance? Or do you think there is something much bigger going on behind the scenes at NASA? I want to see what you think. Comment, interact, because your opinion here is worth much more than you think. These supposed technical failures gained a new dimension when independent researchers began to cross-reference images captured by different NASA satellites at different times. And what emerged from these comparisons was, to say the least, unsettling. Records from the SOHO satellite, created to study solar activity, have already shown on more than one occasion the presence of symmetrical objects, with straight lines and perfect angles hovering close to the surface of the Sun. They were not flares. They were not solar flares. They were not image compression artifacts. They were shapes with defined contours without natural correspondence with any known phenomenon. The most surprising: some of these images were available for a few hours on the NASA website before being abruptly replaced by cleaner versions without such objects. And this is not an isolated case. The Hubble Space Telescope, one of the agency's most iconic pieces of equipment, which has photographed distant galaxies and impressive nebulae, also holds intriguing records that have never been widely released to the public. There are archived files with restricted content markings containing images in which triangular shapes appear as if they were moving between stars, leaving a faint but visible trail. In some of these files, you can even notice a sudden change in the camera's exposure, as if at that moment someone had manually interfered with the capture, in live broadcasts made by satellites like GOES-16. There are times when pulsating lights appear for fractions of a second in the corner of the screen. These lights do not follow the pattern of atmospheric activity or reflect common electromagnetic interference. They appear and disappear suddenly in regions where no satellite or aircraft should be. The official explanation: reflection. But experts point out that for a reflection to happen like that, it would require a specific angle and an extremely powerful light source, something incompatible with the conditions at the time of transmission. Another curious fact involves the test satellite, which was developed to hunt for exoplanets. During one of his missions, he recorded what appeared to be a cylindrical body crossing a distant star. The movement was uniform, constant, and direct. The images, initially posted to a public NASA database, were quickly downloaded by attentive users. A few hours later, the same database had a system update, and the files were gone. The original file ended up going viral on discussion forums and communities of amateur scientists, who came to the same conclusion: there is no way it could be explained as image noise. In addition to the images, there are also the signs. Yes, electromagnetic signals captured by high-precision sensors on orbital satellites. These signals are often dismissed as interference or noise, but in certain cases, they present intelligent patterns, rhythmic pulses with mathematically precise spacing. Alternative scientists claim that if NASA released the raw data on these signals, we would see that they repeat in certain regions of space, and that, for some reason, these regions are constantly monitored by American satellites. There are also cases in which satellite capture systems themselves appear to suffer inexplicable disturbances. Moments in which the image locks, freezes, or disappears exactly at the moment something unusual enters the scene. Cases like this occurred during the Cassini mission while orbiting Saturn, and again during transmissions from the ISS International Space Station, especially when the camera was facing deep space. In both cases, the pattern was repeated. A strange presence approaches the field of vision, and the image disappears, allegedly due to technical problems. Another little discussed but extremely revealing point is the use of artificial intelligence in NASA's image analysis systems. Today, many records are automatically processed by algorithms that filter, adjust, and organize captures according to internally defined parameters. This means that before a human even sees an image, the agency's AI has already determined whether it will be discarded, archived, published, or classified as irrelevant. And who defines these parameters? Who defines what is considered normal and what should be excluded as an error? The evidence is not only in the images we see, but also in those that never reach us. And when a metallic structure appears in Earth's orbit and is removed minutes later, or when a beam of light cuts through the darkness of space from nowhere, and the recording fails shortly afterwards, it is impossible not to raise the possibility of censorship, of manipulation, of containment of something that could change everything. What if the system itself was designed so that the truth never fully emerges? What if every image that comes to us has already been reviewed, edited, and approved by an invisible committee which decides what we should know about the universe? Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever seen an image from NASA that made you suspicious? Have you ever noticed a strange detail, something that didn't seem to be there by chance? Have you ever seen an image that then disappeared from the internet or could no longer be found? Comment below if you believe there is censorship in images from NASA satellites. Write the word hidden if you think there is a filtering, or real evidence if you believe that the images are showing much more than is disclosed. I want to know who is here seeking the truth. Many of the images that disappear, many of the signals that are classified as errors or simply ignored are not just technical glitches as NASA wants them to appear. They are part of a silent, repetitive, and increasingly evident pattern. And this pattern begins to gain even more strength when we listen to those who have already been inside. People who worked directly behind the scenes at the largest space agency in the world. Former engineers, analysts, mission operators, highly skilled scientists who, for years, had unrestricted access to data that never reached the public. And when these people decide to speak out, even if anonymously, the reports that emerge are, to say the least, disturbing. In an interview that has never been broadcast in traditional media, a former NASA engineer with more than 20 years of service and observation satellite projects stated that many records are archived deliberately without any public explanation. According to him, there are internal protocols to classify certain types of images as too sensitive for dissemination. He went so far as to say, in so many words, if people knew what we see, they wouldn't sleep at night. This sentence, said seriously, without sensationalism, carries an absurd weight. What could be so impactful as to cause collective insomnia? Other reports follow the same line. There are documents written by retired employees that report internal meetings where images were discussed, not for their scientific value, but for their potential to generate panic. Some of these images involved unknown structures orbiting planets in the solar system. Others showed objects moving at speeds incompatible with any known terrestrial technology. And all of them, without exception, were classified as outside scientific scope. Archived and never officially mentioned, an image analyst from NASA itself, who participated in projects involving the GOES and Terra satellites, revealed that there is an automated filter in the processing tools that marks any unidentified object as image noise. It's automatically eliminating it before anyone even sees it. According to him, the system was programmed based on institutional security parameters, but security against what? Against errors, or against discoveries that should not reach the public. There are also former collaborators who participated in programs in cooperation with United States military agencies and who claim that part of the content captured by NASA satellites is immediately redirected to intelligence departments. A tease means that there are images that never pass scientific scrutiny. They are analyzed directly by national security sectors, under the argument that anything outside of normality needs to be treated as a potential threat. It's no longer about science, it's about control. Control of the narrative. Control of information. Control of public perception of what's out there. These same former employees say that professionals who work with raw images receive specific training to deal with technical abnormalities, and that there is an internal manual not available to the public that describes how to act when faced with unexplained appearances. These are not guidelines for studying the phenomenon, but rather clear instructions on how to label, archive, and close the matter. It's as if everything was already scripted. It's as if every mysterious image, every strange object, every anomalous signal had a certain destination. Oblivion, some even report situations in which they were threatened for asking too many questions, or for showing interest in investigating these phenomena beyond what was permitted. One of them, on condition of anonymity, said that after questioning the origin of a sequence of images that showed a light beam emerging from the surface of the moon, he was removed from the project and transferred to another sector. Shortly afterwards, he received an internal memo stating that there are not enough elements to open an investigation into what happened, and that it should only focus on events with proven technical relevance. Now tell me, how is it possible for a trained, experienced scientist with access to the NASA database to be removed from a project because he wants to better understand a sequence of images that he himself helped to capture? What do they try so hard to protect? Is it really our security, ... or is it the fear of losing control over the truth? Reports like these are not few. They are spread across forums, deleted interviews, leaked files, and even books written by former employees who decided to break their silence. Most of them had their professional lives sabotaged. Some have been publicly discredited. Others simply disappeared from the scientific scene. But what they said remains. It's registered. And what they say always points in the same direction. NASA knows much more than it shows and does everything it can to keep the public away from these uncomfortable truths. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think these scientists saw? Do you believe that there really is information being hidden? Comment the word below, institutional silence. If you think these stories are being intentionally buried, or write controlled exposure if you believe that the truth is being revealed in small doses, only when it is convenient. I want to know what you think, because your opinion is part of this collective investigation we are conducting here. NASA's response, whenever faced with mysterious records captured by its own satellites, seems to follow a script. The sentences are standardized, cold, technical. Image artifact, solar flare, electromagnetic interference, lens error, or, at worst, compression failure. Apparently scientific terms, but they act as walls between the public and what may really be happening behind the scenes of space exploration. And the inevitable question that hangs in the air is, if these are just banal errors, why do these errors so often disappear quickly from databases? Why do many of these anomalies disappear as if they never existed? Let's look at this more. Critically, image captured by a NASA satellite must go through several processes before being made available to the public. There is an automated system that filters what goes into the air and what is stored internally. When something out of the ordinary appears, an unusual light, an object with perfect symmetry, a shadow that shouldn't be there, the system classifies it as an abnormality and the protocol is activated. The image review team analyzes and decides the fate of that material. And if it is classified as sensitive, it simply disappears. This is not an error. It is a system designed to protect, control, and in many cases, hide. How many times have you heard NASA answer journalists' questions with evasive phrases? There is not enough evidence to confirm, or everything indicates that it was just an optical phenomenon. Now reflect. An agency that controls satellites costing billions of dollars, with extremely advanced sensors which monitor the depths of the universe in high definition, cannot explain a simple image with a bright point or a strange geometric shape. Or do they succeed, but choose not to explain? It is interesting to note that, when spectacular images of distant nebulae or galaxies appear, NASA promotes, publicizes, and spreads these photos to the four winds. But when an unidentified object appears, the answer changes tone. Caution dominates. The words are carefully measured. The communications are generic. Why this contrast? Why publish images that reinforce the official narrative with such enthusiasm and treat with such silence those that challenge the limits of what we know? In 2015, for example, a set of images captured by the SOHO satellite showed a cube-shaped structure approaching the sun. The repercussion was immediate on social media. Users from all over the world began to share, debate, and theorize about what that object could be. NASA's response was straightforward: image artifact caused by failure to read pixels. But a few days later, when trying to access the same images, many users discovered that they had been replaced with edited versions, where the cube had disappeared. No further explanation was given. No retraction. Nothing. This type of attitude does not make doubt disappear. On the contrary, it fuels distrust. It increases the feeling that there is something behind the curtain that they don't want us to see. It's the classic Streisand effect. The more they try to hide it, the more attention it attracts. And if there's one thing that people quickly learn when observing patterns of institutional behavior, it's that when there is censorship or excessive control, there's a reason behind it. NASA, with its entire structure, its laboratories, its renowned scientists, and its partnerships with universities and international bodies, is a powerful information machine. But it can also be a concealment machine. After all, Who decides what is an artifact and what is evidence? Who decides what will be disclosed and what will be ignored? And who audits this process? These decisions are often made by internal committees, made up of people who respond not only to scientific principles, but also to national security guidelines. This means that the control of information is above scientific curiosity. It is subordinated to interests that go beyond laboratories. And when what is at stake is the impact that certain revelations could have on society, the choice between disclosing or hiding is not as neutral as it seems. Images that could raise profound debates about the existence of non-terrestrial technology, about intelligent activity beyond our planet, or even about the manipulation of physical space itself by forces we do not yet understand, are reduced to a simple line of communication: solar reflection, and the case is closed. But the doubt remains. What if reflection is, in fact, a technology invisible to our current concepts? What if the artifact is a sign that we are not alone? What if the lens error is a purposeful move to keep us in the dark? Now you tell me, to what extent do you believe in these official explanations? Do you fully trust NASA's answers, or do you feel there is something else being left out? Comment the word here double version if you think there is a public and a hidden reality. Or type covered by science. It is believed that scientific discourse is being used as a curtain. Your comment can help more people open their eyes to what is really happening. What if all these mysterious records, all these unexplained lights, geometric shapes in space, coded signals and hidden images are not just coincidences or technical failures? What if, in fact, this is all part of something much bigger, much deeper, that has been carefully monitored for decades, not out of scientific curiosity, but for a reason that most people don't even consider? There is a theory considered absurd by some and completely logical by others. That's space satellites, many of which are attributed to scientific and climate purposes, have a second function. A silent, undocumented, but highly strategic function: to monitor an intelligent presence that inhabits the vicinity of our planet. A presence that NASA has already detected, but never admitted. Independent researchers around the world have been raising serious questions, crossing data, analyzing raw images before they are deleted from servers, and finding a pattern that can no longer be ignored. In his words, it is no longer a question of discovering whether we are alone in the universe, but rather of understanding why do they hide that we are not there. According to these scholars, it is no surprise that NASA's most advanced satellites were strategically positioned in certain orbits, as if they had been programmed to monitor specific areas of space. And these zones are not chosen randomly. These are regions where anomalies repeatedly appear that defy all conventional explanations. These are areas where unusual electromagnetic signals are detected, where objects accelerate and change direction in ways impossible for any human technology. What if NASA's satellites weren't just there to study space, but to watch something moving within it? Something that is not stationary. Something that appears, disappears, returns, and seems to have awareness that you are being watched. What would happen if this were publicly acknowledged? What kind of reaction would there be worldwide if an agency like NASA admitted that there are intelligent objects interacting with our missions, with our probes, with our satellites? This is where the game changes. 'Cause when a simple image shows a beam of light crossing the darkness of the universe, and this is called a reflection, you already know that there is an attempt at control. But when these images are repeated at different times on different missions, with minimal trajectory variations, and when these variations indicate behavior, yes, behavior, then we are dealing with something beyond nature. Something that responds, moves, avoids detection. Something that acts intelligently. This theory has been debated in private forums. Alternative research groups, and even enclosed meetings between former military personnel and scientists who can no longer ignore the patterns. The hypothesis is simple. There are non-human entities or structures monitoring the planet, and satellites serve as the eyes not only of NASA, but of an interplanetary surveillance system that has been operating for longer than we realize. And perhaps this is the real reason for the launch of so many new satellites in such a short time. The official excuse is always technological advancement, climate monitoring, scientific progress. But if we look more closely, we will realize that the orbital positions of some of this equipment form true invisible fences around regions that concentrate the highest rates of anomalies captured in the last 20 years. Now, imagine that some of these regions coincide with recurring observation points, such as the lunar orbit, the asteroid belt, or even unexplored areas near Jupiter and Saturn. Why is there a standard of surveillance in these areas? Why is the movement of satellites so precise, so coordinated, and at the same time so little publicized to the common public? According to unconfirmed reports from high-ranking officials, there have been times when unidentified objects have directly interfered with satellite transmissions, changing the orientation of signals or distorting images in real time. In some cases, the sensors simply stopped working when something got too close. Coincidence? Proponents of this theory say no. What if what we call technical anomalies are, in fact, a form of camouflage used by an intelligence that knows exactly what to do to remain invisible to our eyes, but visible just enough to send a message? Something like, "We are here, and we are watching you too." The truth, as frightening as it may seem, may not be above the clouds in another galaxy or in the distant future. She could be in orbit. Right now, silent. It is hidden in beams of light, in shadows that should not exist, in records that last a few seconds and are then classified as irrelevant. And that's why questions need to be asked. Not to feed paranoia, but to break the cycle of silence that has been established. Because if there's something out there watching us, and the satellites are watching, then we're all involved. We are all part of a story that has not yet been told, but whose fragments are available if we know where to look, and if we are willing to question. Tell me here in the comments, do you believe that NASA satellites are monitoring something that is not of this world? If this theory makes sense to you, comment on the word observers. Or, if you believe we are being watched but the truth is being hidden, write silent surveillance. And if you have your own theory about what's really going on up there, please share. Your comment may open even more eyes. If everything that has been shown so far has affected your perception of reality, it is no coincidence. There is a lot of evidence, a lot of missing records, explanations that are too shallow for images that are too complex, lights that repeat themselves in patterns that defy physics, shadows with symmetry, signals with an intelligent frequency. There are too many coincidences to ignore, too many repetitions to call it a failure, too much silence not to arouse suspicion. And the more we look up, the more we realize that space may not be as empty as we believe. With each orbit, each interrupted transmission, each image removed, we are left with the feeling that it is not science that is failing, it is transparency. And you, who have come this far, have already realized that this information does not circulate easily. Videos on the topic are demonetized, deprioritized, or even removed. Platforms stop delivering content like this because it is considered too sensitive, even when all we do is raise questions and show what is available, or, at least, what has not yet been deleted. That's why your support is so important. When you comment, share, interact, the algorithm understands that this topic matters, that it needs to reach more people. And let's be honest, if not even NASA is showing everything, who else is going to expose what's behind the satellites? The question that remains now is direct and difficult to ignore. Do you believe that NASA really shows everything that its satellites capture? Or do you think there is an intentional filter, a selection of what can be seen and what needs to be hidden? There are people who believe that all this is nothing more than misinterpretations, data distortions, visual illusions. But there are also those, like you, who can connect the dots, feel the pattern forming, realize that there is something bigger happening, something that has not yet been said, but is there, hovering in space, being closely watched. And perhaps that's what scares the most, the idea that we're not alone and that we never were. Now, I want to hear you. Tell me here in the comments, do you trust the images released by NASA? Do you believe that satellites are seeing something that we shouldn't see? If yes, comment the word covert. If you think this is all more than a coincidence, right? Orbital censorship. And if you have a theory of your own, share it. Here is the space for us to think together, to investigate what the media ignores, to put together this cosmic puzzle that is being dismantled piece by piece, right before our eyes. If this video impacted you in any way, if it raised doubts, if it made you rethink everything you believed about NASA, satellites, and what is really happening in space, then this channel is the place for you. Here, we investigate what they don't want you to see. We connect dots, reveal hidden patterns, and bring to light the questions that no one else asks. So, if you want to continue receiving content like this, which is not afraid to poke where no one wants to poke, subscribe to the channel now. Activate the bell, because the next videos will show you what satellites have already captured on the Moon, on Mars, and in regions of space that seem observed. What you've seen so far is just the beginning. There's a place in Earth's orbit where cameras record everything 24 hours a day, the International Space Station. And even with all this surveillance, strange events continue to happen there. In the next video, you will see reports and images from the ISS that indicate something beyond human understanding. After that, it will be impossible to look at space in the same way.